sweet success. In this video, we check out the gears, we check out the clutch, the diff, the tail shaft and the brakes. And by the end of this, you'll see me driving down the road. I might even do a little power skid. Watch the video, see what happens. See you at the end. G'day crew, welcome back. I'm Todd from Toxic Garage Customs and this is another video on the Datsun. So, haven't played with this for a couple of weeks, been a bit busy, but what I'm about to do is get her started again, jack her up at the back. I think I'm going to call this Doris, by the way. Why not? Doris Datsun, seems pretty good. So Doris. Go to jack Doris up at the back and I'll precariously leave it sitting on the jack because I can't dig my jack stands out from where I've moved them to. Only got 3 sets of them. And I'm going to chuck a few more bricks under the front so that Doris doesn't roll off the bricks that are there at the moment. Anyway, the point of it, got to get it running, check out the clutch, check out the gearbox and check out the diff. And we'll see, I might even move on to the brakes, but we'll see how that one pans out. After getting her running, which you will have seen by now, I did disconnect the radiator hoses and gave it a good flush through. Haven't put any flush through or anything like that, like any actual radiator flush, but stuck the hose down the bottom, up the top, backwards, forwards, here, there and everywhere. And actually not a lot of rubbish came out, which was good. But okay, got Doris jacked up at the back. Working on a jack is not my preferred way of doing things. I need stands and I don't like working on bricks, but hey, you got to do what you got to do in the big picture. So I'm just going to be careful not to get underneath this at any point. I don't want it to fall on me. So what I'm about to do is to get it started and try out the clutch, the gearbox and the diff. So let's see what happens. I don't think the brakes are stuck because I can push it. So let's see. Bit of fuel tip down the carby, take 2. Let's see if the clutch works. Just put it in first. No grinding when I put it first. Take the handbrake off. Let's see if we've got first gear. We've got first gear. Let's see how we go for second. Second gear. Third. Fourth. Okay, let's see if we got reverse. Hit the brakes. No brakes. All brakes. Let's see how the handbrake works. We'll do reverse. Where's reverse? Reverse. See that? 4 gears and reverse gear. No horrible sounds. First, second, third, fourth. gravel up there. I wonder what the tail shaft's like. Doing 20 miles an hour at the moment. Let's check out this tail shaft. Hopefully I don't get hit in the face by it. Bit hard to tell, but I reckon one of the unis might need replacing. Try not to get myself run over by the car here. That rear uni there looks a bit funny. Hey, once again, it looks like that's not really barely spinning, but it is. So obviously not a limited slip diff. Got this wheel going flat out, that one not going, and I think there's a little bit of wobble there, but it's pretty good. Just idling away on its own here. Okay, well, as far as I'm concerned, oil, all that sort of gear is what might be needed. And hopefully this thing doesn't take off and go through the fence in a moment. So the jack collapsing, car just taking off through the fence, 4th gear, 20 mile an hour start. Lovely. Well, there she is. So, oils, all that sort of good gear, but I reckon it's time to play around with the brakes, and I just remembered I've got no water in this. Better turn her off. Okay, got Audrey out of the way, got a bit more room to work. So, we have Doris, precariously sitting on some uneven stacks of bricks, on the jack at the back, and some fall protection milk crates at the back there. So let's be fair dinkum about this. That jack will go down slowly if it goes down, and if I see it sitting on those milk crates, then it's enough just to stop me getting injured. I'm not going to get under the car, it's just while I'm working on the brakes. I just don't really want my feet to be cut off, because it might damage my thongs. Okay, so let's pull this rear brake drum off on this side and see what we have. Doris, the Datsun that just keeps on giving. So it took me about 4 seconds to get the wheel off and about 4 seconds to get the brake drum off. Now let's have a look here. What do we got? Brake drum. A little bit of lipping there, but it's pretty serviceable to me. You can see where they've been sitting for a little while. Car's been out of the weather, so it's okay. I'll measure them up, but there's a little bit of lipping there, but I don't think there's any issue with that drum, so that's okay. There's actually even some shoes there, so I would say that they're at least 3/4 remaining. Let's check out the wheel cylinders. There's obviously a little bit of dust and stuff in there. It's normal, they're brakes. We'll check out the wheel cylinders. Now, just to be clear, working on cars, I might use old radiator hoses, I might use this, that, the other. I don't muck around with brakes. If the brakes are no good, the brakes are no good, and I always just anticipate having to replace all those. But having said that, if the wheel cylinders are okay, then they're okay. Brake hoses, the fact that the brake hoses on this, the radiator hose and the upper rubber on this is pretty hard, then it might be the same for the rest of it. But the rubber brake hoses, I always just expect that I'm going to be replacing those. So nothing different on this one. Okay, so I'm just going to peel back the boot on the wheel cylinder. No, I'm not. It hasn't got boots. What's going on here? This is the new one on me. Well, there you go. I need to actually investigate what these wheel cylinders look like, because they're not something I'm familiar with. Normally you've got a little rubber boot you can peel back on each side, and check it out. This hasn't got that. So, yeah, I'll have to investigate that one. Let's look at the rest of the rear end while we're here. Got the shockies. Actually, I haven't even checked to see how these are. All these brake levers and springs and so on. they're all intact, got a bit of surface rust on them, they'll be okay. I'll throw some lubricant on all those. So, I don't even know how these work, probably should check that out. So I presume this is the handbrake. Oh yeah, so it pulls via the cable at the front here. Pulls like on a pivot sort of setup, and then pulls a lever on this side and a lever on the other side and engages the handbrake. And I actually know the handbrake works. So as far as the brakes go, I'll have a look at the other side and I'll look at the front in the same way. What I'll think I'll have to do is have a look at the back. I'll give it a quick clean out, and then if it all looks okay, I'm actually just going to put it all back together, and then I'll do the front. The problem is I'm going to have to use the jack for the front to jack it up, so I'm not going to leave it. I can't jack it front and back at the same time, so I'll put the wheels back on it, I'll lower it back down on something, and we'll have a look at the front. What's the inner guards look like while we're here? Let's have a look. What do we got? It's obviously been painted, so a bit of overspray. Well, looks pretty good. Spare tyre, we'll chuck that on the back as well. Even the bushes. Oh, the bushes look okay. Not going to need much for this. It's going to be an easy get going. Obviously the diff's leaking a bit of oil. That's okay. Righto. Let's look at the other side. Righto, so you saw I got that other drum off okay. It sort of came off in a hurry towards the end. just a little bit of lippage. I've already given it a clean out on the other side and put that back together. I've got a bit more room on this side to work, so I just thought I'd show you this. So down the bottom here, there's quite a bit of dust sitting there. Now, back in the day, brake shoes were made out of asbestos, and asbestos is, as a lot of you will be aware, it's harmful, it's toxic, it can kill you, destroys your lungs. So the process that is often done in workshops when doing brakes is just to get the blow up, blow all the dust out, and it just fills the entire workshop up. I learned a long time ago, not a good idea. So what I like to do is just spray. If I didn't worry about making a bit more mess, I would probably just use the hose, but I just got a sprayer. I've actually just got a tray below there, just for my oil draining, what I use to drain the oil and so on. And I'm just going to try and just clean the dust out of there. There could be a little bit of axle seal seepage behind here. It's going to be a bit hard to see it now that it's all wet, but it looked like the brake dust might have been clinging to a bit of leaking oil. Anyway, that's all I'm doing, giving it a clean out. And I'll put it back together. I have decided I am going to literally just do this, give it a clean. By the way, this is not WD-40. That's what I put my WD-40 in. It's just a water bottle. It's just water in it at the moment. So I'm going to put this all back together, and I will play around with the front, and I might end up pulling the master cylinder off, because it didn't have any fluid in it, had a little bit of junk in the bottom. I might go to the trouble of pulling it off, and just giving it a clean, not with anything special, probably just some water, maybe a bit of hot water, a little bit of soap even, just literally to clean it, make sure it's dry, blow a bit of air through it to make sure there's no water in there, and then put it back on, see if it accepts brake fluid, and see if I can pump brake fluid through the system. Again, I will do all the brakes. I'm not saying one thing and doing another here. I will rebuild all the brakes, and I will use new hoses and so on. Probably won't worry about these shoes because they actually look fine. So it says at the other side. But as far as the hoses and probably the wheel cylinders, I guess, I will rebuild them. But I just want to actually get the thing moving under its own power at the moment, so that I know I've got an engine, I know I've got a clutch and a tail shaft and diff and all that stuff, and it all seems to work. What I don't have is any way of stopping. So if I can get this thing stopping, then I can theoretically drive it down the road and see how it goes, and that'd be great. Check out the steering and all that sort of stuff. So I'll put this back together and we'll swap ends. Okay, so I got the spare tyre pumped up. It's in far better condition than the one that's on the rear, or that was on the rear, because it had a big rip in it. So tyre's no good. It's obviously been on the front, and it has needed a wheel alignment. That's really worn out on the edge. But if it holds air, that's all I really need. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to take the master cylinder off. Now I'm anticipating that, well, there's two 12mm bolts here, or nuts on bolts. There's a 10mm brake fitting here, and there will be a rod coming in the back from the pedal and some sort of clevis pin holding it in place. Now some master cylinders you can actually just take them off and they just slide out and the rod comes out, but I may need to, that thing right in the middle of the screen there, that clevis pin, I may need to take the clip out to let that rod and that boot move forward through the firewall. I'm kind of anticipating that. There's probably just a split pin on the other side of that there, and that pin will come out. I'll show you that if I need to do it. So let's get over here. So once again, the reason I'm pulling this off is I'm going to give a really good clean up, and I'll bench blade it, so I'll push some fluid through to it so that it pushes some air out. It's a 4-wheel drum system, and I'm doing this before I let the back down, because I may be able to pump some fluid through while it's up in the air without trying to work around the wheels and something. I haven't put the wheels back on yet. let's get this thing off. If you're going to be working on pipes, it's worth investing in a set of pipe spanners. These slide over the hose and then you can crack it. If you've worked on any form of pipe, particularly brake pipes, you'll know that it's pretty easy to just round them off, and then you need to get a vice grip on them or something. Just pushes over and undoes. I don't loosen that. They are very, very handy. If in doubt, spray it with WD-40 or something first. Now, I didn't spray this with anything before doing it, and if I had any concerns, if I didn't think it was going to crack open, I would have sprayed some WD-40 or Penetrol or something like that on it, CRC, whatever is your preferred, and let it soak. But this is undoing quite well. So what I don't want to have to do is have to go and make new brake pipes, just new metal brake pipes, unnecessarily. If I get the fitting off and it's intact, I can put it back on again. Okay, so that wasn't hard at all to undo the nuts and so on. A bit fiddly to get my fingers in there, but that's okay. So I've just moved this out of the way. I just undid the nut that holds on this junction where various brake pipes go into, and the brake pressure light switch, brake light switch, just so that I had a bit more movement out of this, so that I could pull it out. So it just gave me a bit of wiggle. Now this here, as I was saying, you can see it's pulling off the firewall, but what I will be able to tell you is that I'm also pulling the brake pedal forward at the moment, so I need to take the clevis pin out. So that'll be easy enough. It's going to be impossible for you to see, but what I think is going on is that if there's a spring, there's a return spring, and I think it's hooked onto the little clevis pin, so I'll show you that once I pull it apart. But I think all I need to do is actually remove the spring, and that'll allow the pin to come out. So if that's what happens, I'll show you once I get it out. Yep, so as I thought, that's what happens. So that's what holds it in. So hopefully this should just come out now. A little washer here, which will just stop water getting into the cabin, so I'm not worried about that. What we have, so that's the master cylinder unit. You can see where the pipe goes in, fluid goes in where it bolts on, pretty simple. And this is the part on the end there, the gold bit. That's the part that goes onto the brake pedal. So brake pedal comes into the back of it. Then this clevis pin just here, it pushes through here. So that's it there. It pushes through like that. And then the spring hooked in underneath it from that end. Like that. And it just holds the pin, stops it from coming out. So I've just got to work out where this hooks back up underneath the dash because it fell off before I saw. Okay, well that was not too hard. Not too hard at all. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to take this down to my workshop where I've got a bit of a bench, and I'll give it a clean with some basically hot soapy water. I'll take you along for the journey. Righto, let's start with getting this thing disassembled. I'll just take the reservoir off. It's just a little 10mm nut on basically a hose clamp. Loosen that off, and I imagine this will just slide off. Pretty easy. Oh, mama. So this is the remainder of the brake fluid. So someone's been putting salt in there. So I imagine there's probably a fair bit of that sort of junk in the lines. That's interesting. A little filter in the bottom of this. This will clean up okay. I suspect that once I get all this fluffy powdery stuff out, all that stuff there, I'll be well on my way to getting this clean. I'm imagining that's water soluble. Glass cleaner, got that one. So I'm just going to chuck that under the tap and see what happens. Brake fluid is water soluble. I think this is brake fluid, therefore I imagine this might be water soluble. I'll let you know. Righto, so I literally put it under the tap and that stuff dissolved. So I've just put some water in the top of the reservoir here, on the top of the master cylinder. I'll just see whether I can squirt some of that powder out or whether it gets jammed or what happens. Okay. Hydraulically it's working just fine, pumping stuff through. So I'm going to have my fingers crossed that all this needs is a clean. So what I'm going to do, I'll give the reservoir a rinse off, then I'll fill it with water, and then I'll give it a pump through. And you know what, I'm going to dry it. I'm going to call that done, because I reckon it will be okay. So I'll just give all this a clean. She should be pretty good. Okay, literally about 2 minutes later, just given this all a rinse. Give it a clean up. Basically, I just don't want any junk in there. Not worried about it looking spotlessly clean. Mind you, I like it when they look spotlessly clean. That filter came up well. Let it clean out, dry out. There's all black stuff on the bottom of it. Just literally wiped it out with my finger under the tap. So nothing special. I haven't used any soap or anything like that. I've literally just given this thing a wash with water under the tap. That is the extent of it. It's looking pretty good. Got that a pretty cheap rebuild. And the cap, it's got like a little pressure relief valve on the top here. All seems to be in pretty good tact. I don't know, if it's sitting around for 20 plus years, 24 years or whatever it is, I can't really complain about that. Cannot complain at all. A little bit of junk around there. I'll try and get that out. Anyway, I'll show you once it's back together. Okay, giving it all a clean up, I did pull this boot back off, or pulled it back off here. There was a little bit of corrosion in the back there. That can sometimes mean, if there's fluid behind there, it can mean that the seals are leaking back. There was some of that powdery stuff, so I'm wondering if some fluid has bypassed the seals to get through there. Time will tell. It's not perfectly dry yet, but I'll give it a bit of a dry. I haven't got any compressed air at the moment, otherwise I would normally blow air in the end in all available holes just to try and blow rubbish out. So I have put water in there, as I said, and pushed it through. And I've just got my garden blower just to try and do something, but it doesn't do much. So I'll just put the rubber boot back on. And okay, we can see a bit of fluid coming out there. So I'll shake a bit more out. I'll try and get it as dry as I can. It's actually dirty stuff as well, which is good. It's what I want to come out. Okay, so I've just got the master cylinder just clamped in the vise here, just loosely so it doesn't damage it. And you saw me just fill the reservoir up with fluid. And this is where the hose goes in, the pipe goes in, just at the end here. So I'm just going to hold a rag there so that I don't get brake fluid squirting across the workshop. Normally I'd just put a bit of brake hose there and just put it into a bottle or something, but I don't have any of that with me. So I'm just going to put a rag there just so it doesn't go projectile squirting across the workshop. And I'm going to push this push rod in and try and bleed some air out of it. And this is called bench bleeding. Pretty easy on a single reservoir master cylinder, just for drum. But if you've got a twin reservoir, then it's not much harder. It's just doing this and blocking 2 holes rather than 1. Not much is going on there, which makes me wonder if the seals are shot completely. Alright, so what I'm doing there, I'm blocking the hole on the end, I'm pushing it and I'm bleeding the air out, same as bleeding the brakes, and I can see a little bit of fluid on my finger here. You might be able to hear the air. What I'm hoping to do is to get the air out and the water that might still be in there and get some fluid coming through. There we go. Just managed to get it everywhere. Okay. I do have a motorbike behind me here, so I'm just going to check that I haven't got fluid all over it. No, motorbike's okay. It's only a plastic motorbike anyway, like it's got plastics. Now the reason I'm looking at that is that brake fluid peels your paint off. So if you get it on there, you want to rinse it with water immediately. So, okay, when I do that now, there's just fluid squirting straight out. This thing is pumping beautifully. So as far as I'm concerned, this thing is bench bled, ready to go onto the car. And what I'm going to do, it's a little bit back to front, but I'm going to put this on the car and I'm going to try and push all the junk that's in the brake lines through with this good clean stuff, because I've got no compressed air. Normally I'd pull apart what I can, stick an air hose down the pipes and blow it out the other end and so on. I'm hoping I don't cause any further damage by pushing junk into the wheel cylinders that won't come out, but we'll see. So I'm going to connect this up. It's now bled, so as soon as I put this onto the brake hoses, I should be able to push fluid through the hoses, because sometimes you get an air pocket in the master cylinder itself, and it's difficult to get the fluid to come through in the first place, hence why I'm bench bleeding it. You can see the fluid's down there. It's only a small reservoir, so I'll have to top this up a fair bit. Luckily behind that I've got 4 litres of brake fluid, because I'm probably going to go through a little bit of it. So let's get this on the car and start trying to pump some clean fluid through those pipes. Might have some brakes soon. Righto, master cylinder's all bolted up. I've just got a funnel sitting there because I've got that big bottle of brake fluid. I've got nothing to put it into, and nothing I want to put it into. So I'm just putting the funnel there. I'm going to go through a lot of brake fluid, so I just tip it in there. I'll just leave the cap off. It seems to be okay. Sometimes in the past I have had master cylinders where you put your foot on the pedal and brake fluid squirts out the top of them. This one doesn't seem to do that, so shouldn't be a problem. Got it all connected up to the brake pedal again. To be completely honest, it probably took me twice as long to connect the put the spring back onto the back of the brake pedal than what it did to put the rest of the master cylinder in. Fiddly under the dash, hard to get to. Even though it's a small car and there's lots of space, it was still fiddly. So what I'm going to do, and I haven't really explained this fully, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to crack the wheel cylinders on the wheels. I'll do the back first, being that they're furthest away from the master cylinder. And I'm just going to crack them and leave them open, and hopefully gravity will just send brake fluid through. But what I will do also, I'll pump it, just not trying to get the air out of it, I'm literally just trying to get fluid through there at the moment, so that I can clean out whatever rubbish is in there, but also at the same time so that I can get some fluid through there. And so I'll have to keep coming back and topping this up. Sometimes you have to do this overnight, just leave them cracked overnight to let the fluid push the air out. Gravity normally takes effect, fluid's at the top, it's in the reservoir, runs downhill, leave the cylinders open, leave the nipples open, bleeder nipples open, and it comes through. So I'm just going to give it a little bit of assist along the way. So let's go to the back of the car, crack those open, and try and get some fluid moving from front to back. Before I go leaning under here, let's just check. Okay, milk crates, jack, all still up above it, so it hasn't sagged, so that's a good thing. So because I do need to get under here for a moment. Okay, now I can't find my 8mm pipe spanner, and I think that's what I need. So I'm just going to use an 8mm spanner. Actually, no, I think it's 10. That's okay, that's good, I got that. 10mm pipe spanner on the wheel cylinder. We shouldn't see anything come out here. What if we do? It's not going to look good. Okay, oh, we've got some filthy dirty fluid coming out, so there's something in there, that's good. Liquid is liquid at this point. Okay, well that's okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to put a tray under here, and rather than crack both of them, I'm just going to leave this back one open. Now if I was trying to bleed the air out, I wouldn't do it this way, but all I want is fluid to run through. So I'm going to get you to be my eyes here. I'm going to go up to the other end of the car, and I'm going to just pump, and I want you to tell me if any fluid squirts out. I can see from the master cylinder that the levels dropped a little bit. So what do you reckon? Any squirt out? I'm going to pause here and look at the video so I can see. Okay, so this is going okay. I went to the other side, obviously, and just cracked it open, and fluid actually squirted out under pressure, which is good. So I just bled a little bit through, and it seems to be quite clean fluid coming through, so I'm pretty convinced that I've pushed the old fluid out already. That's not to say I'm going to stop there. I'll make sure. I'll probably empty this reservoir a good 2 or 3 times to make sure. But I'm now going to jump to the front brakes and do the same thing. So the idea being that the fluid comes out of the master cylinder and goes to this little junction here, and I'm not sure which, but this one here, where are we? This pipe here goes to the back, this one goes to the front, and this one goes to the front on the other side by the looks of things. So one pipe goes to the rear brakes, and then one pipe goes to the front left, one goes to the front right. Now this is a single circuit. What that means is if you have a broken pipe on any of these, I believe that you'll lose your brakes. Because if you've got a dual circuit, you lose the front, back will still work. Lose the back, front will still work. So it's not ideal, but that's what it was. It's an old car. So I'm going to go to the front, and I'm going to crack open the front wheel cylinders and do exactly the same. I'll go to the passenger side first, because it's the furthest away, and then I'll work my way across to the driver's side. Then I will hopefully have clean fluid throughout it, and then I might get my lovely assistant, Davina, to come up here and help me bleed the brakes, bleed the air out, because I'm pretty comfortable that we're going to have brakes in a little while. Let's see how we go. Okay, so that's a new one on me. Haven't seen that before. So this is the normal bleeder nipple just here, so I got that soaking. You see where the spanner is up the back? That's actually where the pipe joins onto, I guess, one of the wheel cylinders. I guess there's 2 wheel cylinders in the front here. I haven't pulled the drum off, you may have noticed. I decided not to. I'm just going to try and get the brakes going, and I'll worry about what they look like later. So I went to crack that bleeder nipple, and rather than the bleeder nipple undo, the whole pipe loosened off, which was fine because I'm just trying to change the fluid. So you can probably see a bit of moisture there, and there's fluid dripping down and so on. I cracked it, pumped it a few times. I was able to get quite a bit of fluid pumping through there, so that's good. That's a pretty quick path from the master cylinder to there. So I'm just going to nip that back up again. You won't have seen that. The hose just rotated while I was doing that. My arm's sort of in the way. So just doing that up. That was good. That got some fluid out. And then once I get the opportunity, I'll crack this. So once it is soaked, I'll crack it and I'll get some more out of there. But I'll go over the other side in a second. Do the same. So if you've never seen it, if you're trying to get more leverage on a spanner, you can join two spanners together like that and get extra leverage. Even with an open end, it doesn't have to be one of those. Unfortunately, if the thing's really tight, you may end up just snapping the end off your spanner. That's how tight that wheel cylinder is, how the bleeder nipple is. So that's a bummer. 10mm just happens to be probably the most common one, other than a 3/8 or a 7/16. So you're one of these on the way. Righto, so after snapping that spanner, I decided I would just get a longer spanner and swing off it like crazy and try and snap the bleeder nipple off instead. Well, that didn't happen. They came loose. I probably should have just used my double ring spanner with a bit of length on it in the first place, and it got more contact around the pipe. That pipe spanner I was using is great if you need to slip it over a hose, like over a pipe like there, but I really didn't need to be using that for the bleeder nipple, so that's alright. So got both sides loose now, so I'm just going to bleed a bit more fluid through, and then once I've done that, I reckon I'm probably ready to start bleeding this. Still got no pedal whatsoever. That's not surprising because there'd be a lot of air in this system. So I'm actually going to pump it up and then release it, and hopefully we get a bit of fluid squirting out. So let's see. Now normally when you're bleeding brakes, someone pumps it up, holds their foot on the pedal, it holds pressure there, but hopefully just by doing that there'll be a little bit of pressure there. So let's see if anything squirts out. Yep, a little bit. That's good. Again, all I'm trying to do is clean it, so it means that there is some pressure being held in the pipes. So I'm going to do that again, and then we'll give it a bleed. Okay, so Davina is about to help me bleed the brakes, and we have Pumba here who is going to assist us. Pumba is great help. He generally doesn't cause any problems whatsoever. He focuses on the job and and is just completely like the perfect workshop dog, because he's so easy and cooperative. Okay, so we have Davina and Pumba, and we're about to bleed the brakes. So I'm going to go to the back. I'm going to go to the furthermost one, so the passenger side, and I'm going to get Davina to pump the pedal and then hold it down. I'll get her to pump it about 6 times, hold the pedal down, then I'm going to crack the nipple open and let some fluid squirt out. And then I'll get her to do it a couple of times, and I'll come back and check the fluid every now and then. I'll do the passenger side, then the driver's side, then I'll come to the front, do the passenger side, then the driver's side. What we're trying to do is push the air out by pumping pressure up. Brake fluid doesn't compress, air does. So compressed air. So what we're trying to do is pump the air until it's squashed, and then open up the nipple, and the air wants to squirt out the end. And what we want to end up with is just brake fluid in the pipe with no air, because the air is what gives you a spongy brake pedal when you put your foot on the brake. So we want a nice firm brake pedal. So let's put you on time lapse, and that's what we're doing. And Pumba is probably going to just attack me while I'm doing it. So that's what he does. Okay, so the back seemed to be bleeding out okay, but when I came to the front, the leader nipple that I had trouble getting undone wasn't actually letting any fluid through. So I wound it right the way out, just went through, and I just stuck a thin Allen key down one end and a drill bit down the other end and unblocked it. So hopefully that's going to fix it. So I'll put that back in. Davina's actually been sitting there with a foot down on the pedal the whole time, so it doesn't suck air back in. So I'll put that back in, and then hopefully we'll be able to crack it and bleed some air out of the front one. Okay, so we've got the brakes sorted out. We've got a pretty solid pedal. I still haven't put any water in the radiator. Didn't end up changing the hoses, I'm just using the old ones at the moment. We'll run this water through, drive around for a bit, and that should loosen up some rust and so on in there as well. And then we'll give it another flush, give it another couple of flushes I'm imagining. And once all that's happened, then we'll replace the hoses and put coolant in there. All I'm trying to show at this point in time is how little you can do. How little you can do to get a running car out of a shed. They're not all this easy, but this one is so far. Okay, firstly, there might be a bit of wind noise in this, so I apologise for that. So what I'm going to do right now is start what's her name? Dorothy up, and I'm going to run it through the gears. And what I'm hoping to see, Doris, that's her name, yeah. What I'm hoping to see is the brakes work and me able to make the back wheels stop spinning. So I'm not going to make you put up with this wind noise, so I'll put you on time lapse so you can see what's going on. Do that really wobbly tyre. So the brakes work at 20 miles an hour. got brakes. Got to check that diff oil. And I'll hose all that brake fluid off the road eventually too. So you can see how that wheel's still spinning. It's actually in neutral. I reckon if I grab that wheel I could stop it, but it tells me that the clutch plate must just be binding to the pressure plate just a little bit. It's not releasing completely. I suspect that it'll free up with a little bit of use. If it's binding, it's ever so slightly. I can hold that with one finger.
You can sense his warmth over there now.
Little green tree snake, probably about 1 metre long, about as thick as I guess one of your fingers. Real healthy looking specimen. I think he was chasing a frog in our pond. Maiden voyage! Doris the Datsun. Doris Day. Only one day. Hi, mate. Go ahead. It is.
Oh.
Alexander.
What do you reckon? So far on this car there's been the purchase price and about $30. We've got it running, we've got it driving, we've got it stopping. Given it a bit of a clean up. In the next videos we'll continue to clean it, we'll make it shine, we'll put new tyres on it, we'll clean the interior up, and we'll make this thing ready for rego. Still got to do the fuel tank as well. So I'm pretty happy with that. This series of videos is about picking up a cheap car and trying to get it registered as cheaply as possible. Nothing fancy, not a show winner, just a cool old chrome bumper car. And if you get something that's pretty much complete and follow some pretty simple principles about getting it running and stopping, then you can have a car that you can enjoy for not big bucks. You don't have to be a millionaire. Anyway, I hope you're enjoying it. Stick around, watch the next couple of videos, and I'll see you then. Bye.